Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch, click on the link in the description below to buy it at the lowest price anywhere online. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Patek Philippe Nautilus reference 5726/1A/001 gray dial annual calendar moon phases. I'm going to talk to you about the bezel, the dial, the bracelet, the movement, try it on, give you a little history and my thoughts. So let's start. This watch is the Patek Philippe Nautilus, arguably Patek's greatest and most desirable line. Why do I say that? It's because the Nautilus is the watch that sells for the most above retail of any Patek Philippe watch. It far exceeds that of its younger brother, the Aquanaut, and easily exceeds that of all the complications and grand complications. That's not to say those other watches aren't great. This one is just greater, at least in terms of market value and desirability. Probably not in terms of many other things, though, because those other ones that I referred to, the grand complications are magnificent. So not that this one isn't. It's just that with this design and so many people wanting luxury sports watches these days, it has really made the Nautilus in particular go through the roof in terms of retail price. Now this watch as of 2023 is retailing around 50,000, I think 56,000 to be exact, but they're trading on the gray market for around 100,000. That's 2 times retail. And you might wonder why. And if you are wondering why, well, you can read our gray market or type in Jazz Time gray market into Google and you'll be able to read all about it. Okay. All right. So anyways, this is the Nautilus line. Now, the Nautilus line comes basically in 5 different categories. It has the date only one, which is the 5811. It has the 5712, which is this funky asymmetric one. And it has like a moon phase and a power reserve. It's pretty funky and also very beautiful. And then it has this one, which you see here, the moon phases, which is a very symmetrical dial. As you can see, you can cut it down the center from top to bottom, 12 to 6, and you can see it folds over on itself, and it's the most symmetrical dial, or is one of the symmetrical looking dials. Then there's the chronograph version, which is just a chronograph, tells elapsed time. And then there's the travel time. Oh, and there's also the perpetual calendar. Okay, so I guess that makes 6. Now this, and also in terms of okay, well, anyways, this is the annual calendar moon phases. Now, let's talk about the case a bit here. The case is 40.5 millimeters. I probably just call it 40 millimeter case. That's from the 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock position. The longest distance across this bezel is 40 millimeters, and the watch itself is made of stainless steel. Now, they also make this watch in on a leather bracelet, but they do not make the annual calendar moon phases on anything other than stainless steel. They do not make it on two-tone, and they do not make it on gold, which means probably in the future, just my guess is that they probably will make it with a precious metal in some kind of fashion, because they've only made it on steel, at least up to now. So look out for that at some point in the future. Okay, so it's 40 millimeters, 40.5 actually. The height or the thickness of this watch, let me put it on its side, is 11.3 millimeters. And you might wonder, well, what is a big deal here? Remember the order that I was telling you the watches? No date, then the moon phase one. Well, they're both actually moon phase. The power reserve moon phase 5712, and then this one. Well, they go in terms of thickness. The no date naturally, the date only, it is naturally thinner. It's like 8 millimeters. The power reserve one is approximately the same, 8-9 millimeters. And then this one, the annual calendar with moon phase that you see here, 5726, is 11 millimeters. The chronograph I think is a little bit larger, around 12, and then the travel time is even larger, around 12.5, something like that. Okay, so the watches get progressively thicker as you add more complications and you add more money to it, or in terms of retail price. I mean, I think that makes relative sense, right? Okay, now if you look at the polishing, I'm going to turn it on its 9 o'clock side so you can see, and you'll notice that there's high polish, there's brush polish, and you know, it's no surprise. I want to take you through every little polish here, but because you can see it for yourself, but the polish is done expertly. And that's no surprise given that Patek Philippe is one of the best watchmakers, if not the best watch company in terms of quality on the planet. Probably, not probably, but they're right up there with Audemars Piguet, Richard Mille. So these are the top watches in the world. And so it makes sense that they'd have amazing, best in the world polishes. And if I turn it on its 3 o'clock side, you can see it has a very similar, this kind of hump right here. And I guess I should bring this out to you, or bring this to your attention. What I like about this 5726 is that it's symmetrical. If you cut it down the center, these little humps, I'm not sure what to call them, but they're little protrusions or something. It's symmetrical on both sides. The 9 o'clock and the 3 o'clock actually looks the same. If I were to take a piece of paper and cut it down the center from 12 to 6, you can actually fold this watch on itself and it would be the same. Well, less the crown, of course. But if you can't do that with any of the other watches. For example, the chronograph doesn't fold over because it has 2 pushers. The travel time also does not fold over. And so this is the only one that looks very symmetrical. So if you're really into symmetrical watches, you really want it to look symmetrical, this one would literally be the only symmetrical watch. The left side and the right side are exactly the same. Of course, less the crown, the winder, what do you call it? The crown guard? Not the crown guard. The crown. Okay, so it's the only watch that has a symmetry. All the other ones do not. Even the date only doesn't have symmetry, because you obviously have a date at the 3 o'clock. You don't have it on the 9 o'clock, and the power reserve is definitely not symmetrical. So that's one of the benefits here. And actually, I also want to say, since we're talking about the case, is 11 millimeters. I have to say, probably 11 millimeters, at least in my opinion, is perfect. The bigger, the more complicated you go, it goes 12 and then 12.5 millimeters for the Nautilus. And I don't really think that 12.5 is as good as 11. Yeah, it's just a millimeter bigger, but if you think about it this way in terms of percent, it's actually 10% bigger. Now, I have, of course, seen, worn, and sold all of these ones before, and I can say that for me, 11 millimeters being in the middle is the perfect size in terms of height. Now, I wish they would have made this 11 millimeters on the more complicated one, but I think probably technical things have not allowed Patek to do that, so that's why I think this one is the perfect dimension. And I believe also that 40.5 is also a perfect dimension. I don't believe that the larger one, they make this, I think is a 50th or some kind of 30th anniversary or something, is like 42 millimeters. I've seen it, it's a little bit too big, to be honest. So I think 40 millimeters is quite nice. And they used to make an older version, I think it's called a 3800, and it was a bit smaller, and it's just too small. I really believe 40.5 is a perfect size, and this is the perfect height. So in terms of dimensions and symmetry, you can't really beat the annual calendar moon phases. All right. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about the dial. The dial is gray. It's a black graduated dial. That means that in the center it's a little bit lighter, and it gets darker toward the periphery. It's, I guess you can call it gray black. All right, and it has gold applied hour markers with luminescent coating. That's important so you can see the watch at night. Now, when they first released this annual calendar moon phases, it was released back in 2010, so that's 13 years ago. But they released it on a rubber strap, which actually also is it's the same as this one, except instead of the bracelet, it's on a rubber strap, which is not a bad thing, because you know, a lot of people wear this one in a more sporty type fashion, and it's not bad to have at least one Nautilus on a rubber strap, which is this one right here. And then when they came out with it on bracelet, they released it in 3 different colors. It was a white color. It was a white color and a gray color. Actually, 2 different colors. Sorry, white color and a gray color. And then recently, in 2020, I think it was, they released it in the blue color. Okay, so they're all basically, not basically, they are the same watch, just with different dial colors. Okay, and I suspect that they'll probably release it with another dial color at some point. And they really haven't changed this watch at all, except for the bracelet, by the way, which we'll get to in 13 years. And I'm not so sure that there's really much reason to change it. I mean, the watch has been around for around 50 years. It's pretty much perfect, and I'm really not sure what else they could do to this watch to make it any better. Maybe different variations, but you know, it's what it is, and people love it, and it has a massive following. So, I mean, why change it? Only to make slight things a little bit better. Okay. All right. So that is the dial. I guess we could talk about what it actually does. Now you'll see the calendar on the left is the day, Monday through Sunday, and on the right side is the month, January to December, and at the very bottom you get the date 1 through 31. And in the center, that little hour, that thing is a 24-hour counter. And why is that important? It's because it lets you know that, hey, don't change the date using these pushers until you if the watch is between 9 and 3 o'clock. So make sure the time is around 6 a.m., for example, before you change the date. Okay. And then, of course, the center has a moon phase. It tells you where the moon is at a certain time of the year or the month. And be honest, I've worn this watch quite some time. I didn't actually use any of those things because I won't wear the watch every day. I'll wear it, a day or two here and a day or two here. Then I pretty much only set the time, so I don't even look at this other thing, which is probably the case with many watches and probably many of you at home. But it does look pretty cool. I'm not a huge a fan of like, oh, the complication does this or that, because in the end, most of us don't even use it for that reason. But it does look pretty badass, and I definitely think it looks better than just the date. So when I compare this one to the date only, I think it blows the date out of the water because I just like to have something to look at on my dial. And okay, all right, so that's the dial. Now let's go ahead and talk about the movement. The movement, of course, as expected, is a self-winding mechanical movement, aka automatic. It's a caliber 324 SQALU 24H-303. Okay, basically it's a caliber 324S. It has the day, date, month, moon phased, 24-hour indication. Okay, great. And let me tell you, it also has a 33 millimeter diameter on the movement. To give you some reference, on a 40 millimeter watch, you should have somewhere between 30 and 33 millimeters in size, so that fits the bill. And of course, you can see it through the case back. It's a beautiful movement as expected. I mean, what else can I say? I can't really tell about the details of the movement because I'm not a watchmaker, but you can just look at it for yourself and you can judge. Does it look beautiful? Yeah. And is it Patek and done to perfection, etc., etc.? You can basically trust that it's an amazing movement, which I'm not really sure it is, but Patek says it is and the rest of the world says it is, so I'm sure it probably is. And it looks amazing. Okay. All right, so that's the movement. It actually doesn't look, to be honest, any different, at least to my eyes, than the date, power reserve, whatever, all those other ones. They basically all look the same. It's what's underneath, and since we're not watchmakers, we can't really see what each gear does. We don't know what it does, but it does look badass, and the polishing and finish and everything is done to perfection. Okay. All right. So let's go on to the bracelet here. The bracelet is, of course, a steel Nautilus bracelet. It's iconic. It has curved, polished center links, and the outer links are brush finish with a high polish down the edge of it to maintain the lines of the case and allow this watch to look seamless. And if you compare it to its counterpart in Audemars Piguet, the Royal Oak, you'll notice that the lines here are much more soft. They are curved, as opposed to the Audemars Piguet, which are much more rigid and angular. Okay, now I told you the bracelet is the only thing that has changed. This watch is from the 2016 approximately, so you'll see the buckle has this old style buckle. It uses pressure to push it in. So you push it in on each side. There's no adjustment, by the way. If your watch doesn't fit, you have to buy a 1.5 link, and then you close the top. That's how you. And it's a very it's not going to come apart. So it's done very well. But the newer style, at least as of I think it's 21 or 22, you have this butterfly clasp where you pinch it in the center and it has a nicer look. It does look nicer, but functionally it does the same thing, and it looks not exactly, but very similar from the outside. Okay, the rest of the watch is all the same. So that was one minor change that Patek made. And I believe they made it across the board to all their Nautiluses, including their Aquanauts that have slightly different, this buckle. So this is the old school buckle. Okay, now let's talk about the bezel. The bezel is iconic, and it looks very similar to the Royal Oak Audemars Piguet in that it has this. This one's not octagonal. To me, what they basically did, Patek did, is take the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and instead of having these sharp angular edges, they smoothed it out. It looks basically like a Royal Oak that has a smoothed out bezel, like a smooth bezel. It's not exactly circular, but it's not exactly octagonal. So they've softened those lines, and that makes sense. You know, Patek is a much more traditional brand than AP, and these softer lines fits with the rest of their catalog and kind of who they are, a traditional watch company. I mean, they've been around for 170 years, so it makes sense. Audemars also, but Audemars is cutting edge, whereas Patek is traditional. And, you know, if you ask me, this is a beautiful bezel. And if you ask me, the Royal Oak is also a beautiful bezel. It's really hard to say. I would probably just say it depends on taste. Okay, anyways, that's a bezel. It's a brush finish down the center and high polish on the edges here. Just actually exactly the same as AP, which is not a bad thing. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and try this watch on and give you my thoughts. I am 200 pounds, 6 foot tall, and I have a 7.5-inch wrist, which is an average man's wrist. And you can see it looks and feels and beautiful on me, and it would look even better on you. And if you want to buy it, you go to jazztime.com, JAZTIME.com, to buy it at the lowest price anywhere online. And if you don't want this one, you want a different Nautilus, you can also do that. We have all the Nautiluses and Aquanauts and Pateks and APs and Richard Milles. No, I'm serious. We really do. So if you go to our website, click on the link in the description below, or just go to jazztime.com to find it. You'll be able to buy them all at the lowest price anywhere online, but you got to pay me with a wire, and you got to go there right away. So what are my thoughts about this? Well, for me, you know, you're asking me, what are my thoughts? My thoughts are, I love the Nautilus. I think it's great. I think, you know, it's a top of the line steel sports watch. Now there's other better sports watches out there. I believe Richard Mille is better, but that's not steel usually. They're using funky materials. But as far as like your I want to call it basic, but your traditional sports watch, Patek and AP are the king of the heap. And as far as Nautilus goes, I would have to say that I like the moon phases. I also like the travel time the best. Why? Because I like that the dial has something going on with it. I'm not a huge fan of the date only. I think it's a little too plain, and it's too expensive for what it is. And also the 5712, it looks great, but I'm just not a fan of this asymmetric dial. So if I had to choose, for me, I would choose this one because I like the symmetry of the dial. That's just me. Some people actually like asymmetry. So but that's just me. I like the asymmetry of this dial, and I also like the thickness. That's a big selling point for me, is that it's thicker than the non-date, and it's thinner than the more complicated ones. So that means it's a perfect mix, right in the middle. It's perfectly balanced, not too big, not too small, not too thick, not too thin. So it's exactly perfect. And for me, the dial color doesn't matter so much. You know, if it's blue or gray, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's like if I have a blue shirt on or gray shirt on, I don't really mind, you know, as long as it matches whatever else I'm wearing. And those two colors are easy to match. White is also obviously easy to match. So I'm not a huge stickler on the color. What I can say is, with this gray color though, I like it that it's not flat gray. It's lighter in the center, darker on the edges, and that gives it some depth. And I believe that depth just makes the watch look even more fascinating. Okay, so those are my thoughts. And if you want to buy this watch, please go to jazztime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.